might be a little bit different perspective is complacency. And I think that, a lot of, people we see in the profession are really trying to drive change. And complacency is one of the threats that we often, run into.
The AICPA is telling us that about 75% of their members are at retirement age. We've got fewer students going into the accounting profession. It's like a perfect storm about who is going to do the work. How do you find the people? How do you keep them?
Accounting is necessary. Business advisory is necessary. It's going to be a wonderful world for accountants who want to make a living working with individuals and businesses and advancing their lives.
Welcome to the Accounting Influencers Podcast. I'm Rob Brown, your host, continuing with a series of panel discussions we are doing with people who care about accounting, people who have a say in the accounting world, people that are doing great things, the best influencers, experts, and leaders who have something to say about the direction of travel, how fast we are going, and indeed where we are right now. So I'm going to get the panelists to introduce themselves in just a moment. We are in a period of huge change with lots of opportunities and lots of threats. And we're giving you informed opinions, not just one interview with one person, but we've got four people with us today. So Jeremy, let's start with you. Welcome and a quick introduction from you, sir.
Thank you, Rob. My name is Jeremy Clopton. I'm the managing director at Upstream Academy. We work with accounting firms across the U.S. and Canada on people development and strategic planning.
Nicely done. Tamera, I've interviewed you a few times. Good to have you back. A quick intro, please.
Thanks, Rob. I'm Tamera Loerzel. I'm a partner at Convergence Coaching, and we're committed to transforming the profession and developing leaders, one person at a time so they can make the changes needed.
Rick Telberg probably needs no introduction, but let's go for it anyway, Rick. There might be one or two people on the planet that don't know who you are.
Thank you, Rob. With that, what can I say? I'm the editor and publisher of CPAtrendlines.com. I seem to have a thing for startups. I was there at the startup for Accounting Today and CPA to Biz and ran a division of House and Reuters. And these days I'm hanging out at CPAtrendlines.com.
Superb. Thank you. And Gina, warm welcome to you as well. A lot of people will know you, but please let everyone else know who you are.
Thank you, Rob. I'm Jean Caragher, president of Capstone Marketing. I have been collaborating with the CPAs on their marketing and business development for almost 4 decades. And you can find out more info at capstonemarketing.com.
Thank you. Well, let's open up by asking you why we need to change. In other words, where are the threats coming from for the accounting world? Tamera, I'll start with you on this one. If we look at all the challenges going on, we drive change, we talk about change. Accountants at a breed are not known for being able to change really quick, but I think with what's going on, they have to. What do you see as the things they should be wary of right now?
I think one of them, and this, might be a little bit different perspective, is complacency. And I think that, a lot of, people we see, especially, current leaders, those that maybe have been in the profession and, Jean, 4 decades and, we've been in business for 24 years, we are really trying to drive change, and complacency is one of the threats that we often, run into. And we'd say run, don't walk to the business model shifts, talent strategies, technology innovations that, firms need to implement.
Yeah, we'll unpack some of that. Rick, you put a lot of great content out around getting accountants to adapt and adopt and change. Where do you see the threats coming from?
I don't see them as threats. I see them as opportunities. There's a tremendous opportunity, as Tamera said, in the business model change. That business model change is being facilitated by a rush, a surge, a flood of private equity money. The accounting business as a whole does about $125, $130 billion a year. That's chump change in private equity. One private equity fund could buy the whole business and reform it. They are buying firm by firm. We've seen Grant Thornton, Baker Tilly, Sikkim Koopman, list goes on. And even if the firms don't get acquired by private equity, the competitive landscape changes so that they have to conform to the new rules. Private equity. And that's economics at work.
You bring up a great point right out of the gate that there is private equity is a big player here in the UK. We've got an all-American panel here, but it's moving big time, and we're learning that nobody's too big to merge and nobody's too big to be bought. So yeah, that's definitely, it could be a threat. It could also be an opportunity. We might unpack that. Jean, for you, what are the things accountants need to be wary of at the current time?
Well, I focused in on finding and retaining qualified staff. And I know this is a problem, around the world, but here in the US, there are fewer students, graduating from accounting programs. There's fewer choosing to be CPAs than if they're accountants. A lot of them are choosing not to be certified. And you couple that with the fact that the AICPA is telling us that about 75% of their members are at retirement age. So we've got all these baby boomers in that generation getting ready to retire, and we've got fewer students going into the accounting profession. It's like a perfect storm about who is going to do the work. How do you find the people? How do you keep them? And I guess finally, I would say, all of this is causing some concern on the part of the SEC about the quality of the audit and reporting deficiencies and, technical issues like that. It's a perfect storm.
Perfect storm's a great way of putting it. Jeremy, threats, opportunities, whatever they are, what should be on the top priority list for accountants in terms of what they're looking at?
Yeah, why they're making their decisions to me is one of the biggest things that they've got to be wary of. And, Tamera, you talked about the complacency side of it. Success, unfortunately, breeds complacency. It's working. Why change it when arguably to take advantage of those opportunities, like Rick mentioned, you've got to change to do that. So that complacency side, but let's go the other way as well. There are a lot of firms that are starting to make changes based on fear, or they're based on chasing the hype. And those aren't the right reasons to change either. It's the thing to really be wary of, or one of the things is, why are you making the decisions that you are? Are they right for business, or are they just because somebody else said that you should? And really taking in a close look at that.
One of the ways that accountants change is through regulation. We know they do things that are mandated by law. And this speaks to the accounting qualifications, the governing bodies, what the government is setting up. So I want to put under the spotlight the governing bodies, the qualifications. In doing some of these, the CPA qualification and the relevance of it has been called into question. Do all people that work in accounting firms need to be CPA, or here in the UK, chartered accountant qualified? So, Jean, let's start with you on that one. Fit for purpose, these governing bodies qualifications?
Right. So there's a lot of debate now about the 150-hour rule. And, that's one of the reasons why more students aren't majoring in accounting and finishing accounting degrees and getting their master's, because of that extra 30 hours. And when those 30 hours can be anything, it doesn't even need to be, related to accounting. It costs more money, it costs more time. And then they're looking at a profession where friends that are going into finance or tech, they're making more money. So it's a big issue. So there's a lot of talk now about that. And does it really add value? In fact, there was a study done, and they found no difference in the quality of accountants with the 150 hours of education as opposed to those with fewer hours. So it is a big question that a lot of folks are answering, at least on the student side, that no, the 150 hours, they're not willing to do it.
It's not the case in the UK so much with 150 hours, but certainly what they are studying for the accounting qualifications is being looked at with scrutiny at the moment in terms of what kind of people are we turning out and are they fit to serve in accounting roles. Jeremy, from your point of view, the governing bodies, the qualifications, are they working?
I'd say yes and no. I don't know that I'm necessarily in a position to say that the governing bodies are getting it wrong. To Jean's point, those extra 30 hours, they don't have to be high quality. And I've known plenty of folks that just got the hours so that they could graduate and get to the workforce. And then arguably it's that on-the-job experience that becomes so meaningful to really, setting your career up for success. I don't know that they're exactly where they need to be, but they're there for a reason. And from a technical standpoint, they're covering many of the things. They probably do need to be modified in some way, but my big thing is we don't see a lot of other industries that have a shortage of talent attacking the qualifications, right? You don't see attorneys saying, hey, we should make the bar exam easier, or it should take fewer hours to sit for the bar. So I am all for making sure the qualifications achieve their purpose, but I don't believe that we should be, changing the standard of excellence to try to attract more people. We've got to be very cautious of that. I don't have a great answer for it. I wish that I did, but frankly, I don't, because I think there are still so many unknowns. There are a lot of things the qualifications don't cover, some of the professional skills, the human skills that people need. And we've got to figure out a way to incorporate that if we're going to make some lasting change, would be my thought.
And Rick, when you look at oversight of the accounting profession, it does fall to the professional bodies, societies, institutions like that, wherever they may be. How are they doing in your book?
The accounting profession has been around for more than 100 years. It's had plenty of time, plenty of money, plenty of politics in order to insinuate itself into the governing bodies. The governing bodies, like in most industries, are a captive of the industry. That's why we got the 150-hour rule, because large firms needed better trained people to hire. And they wanted the training that they didn't want to have to do. They wanted the soft skills. So the 150-hour was designed to develop candidates who have soft skills. So the big firms, I think it was Big Six at the time, now it's Big Four, didn't have to spend money training them on the soft skills. They would rather just train them on how to tick and tie and do an audit and check the boxes and work them practically to death. The Big Four is a symptom of the governing bodies. They get away with murder in terms of audited financials and the letters they sign off on. Think about the big collapses. You start with Enron, that destroyed Anderson. We are one catastrophe away from the Big Four becoming the Big Three. But the odds are there'll be a bailout. So the governing bodies are not necessarily governing. They're sustaining, they're nurturing, they're supportive. The profession itself is pretty much independent of the governing bodies. The profession itself boils down to the ethical integrity and character of each individual professional. And those people are exemplary. And that's why the CPA brand is one of the best in the world.
That's a fair comment. And there's nobody here representing the governing bodies, as I have had on other panels. But let's be fair in the interest of balance. They're run by good people with good intentions, and all accountants themselves are good-hearted people that want to serve and really make a difference. And the qualifications they have to pass are generally robust and rigorous and fit for purpose. But in a changing world, I guess that's why I'm asking the question. Tamera, what's your view on this?
Well, I guess I want to build off of the, the way that the governing bodies are running kind of independently that Rick was just pointing to. And, I think that's one thing, for all of the governing bodies within the accounting profession to look at is how could we be more collaborative? How could we be more consistent? I really worry about the conversations, happening about each state doing things independently, and it's going to impact mobility. And then the criteria, to become a CPA. And Jeremy, I couldn't agree more. I don't think we want to water that down. I definitely wouldn't want, we're short on neurosurgeons also. I would not want, their education to be watered down because we are short on it. But if they're all operating independently and doing their own thing instead of looking at it at the macro level and, across, the United States, the Americas here, but, Rob, you would argue globally, how do we be more collaborative and consistent in what we're all trying to achieve the same thing? Because Rob, you were right on. Good people, high integrity, the quality, of the CPA, knowing, the kind of service and integrity you're going to get, is, premier. So.
I wonder how we would, thank you. I wonder how we would brand the profession. We speak right now about the talent problem and the shortages, not just in accounting, but certainly it's acute in accounting. We need hundreds of thousands more accountants to fulfill the need going forward. Many accountants are near or at retirement age right now, so there's that big gap to fill. And we ask the question, why are people not coming into accounting? Why are students not taking accounting degrees? Why are people leaching out of public accounting and going into industry or tech or other places? So I'm asking the question now, whose responsibility do you feel it is to ensure the accounting profession is future ready and relevant in a changing world? Rick Telberg.
Well, the people who get paid to do that are the people who run the societies and the institutes. But more fundamentally, there's no more or less a talent shortage in the accounting industry, opposed to profession, in the accounting business, as Tamara was saying, neurosurgeons or small business. The so-called staffing shortage hasn't stopped accounting firms from growing. We have about 1.1 million people working in accounting and CPA firms and bookkeeping and payroll and tax prep. And that's up about 100,000 from a year ago. And every year it goes up by about that much. In 19, what was it? Call it year 2000, there were 856,000 people working in the business. It's not going up any faster than the economy, but it's keeping pace with the economy. At the same time, revenues are going up a lot faster. The difference, in my book, is profit. So the business is more and more profitable than ever. And that's the story about positioning the firm, positioning the CPA. You can make a lot of money being a CPA. You can have a terrific career being a CPA. You can do almost anything, work almost anywhere with that CPA cheapskate. And when we're talking about governing bodies, protecting the CPA brand is the most important thing. And so far, they've been doing very well at protecting that brand. The brand is one of the top 5 or 10 in the world. Better than lawyers, almost as good as doctors, not quite as good as nurses, certainly better than politicians. The CPA brand is well regarded, and it is a launching pad for a million different opportunities for individuals and for businesses.
Tamara, perhaps I'm being a little bit too controversial in the question of who needs to be changing the profession. Maybe as Rick says, they're making a load of money. Everything's great. Yeah, there's a talent shortage, but there is everywhere. So there are no real problems in accounting and the brand is just fine. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to my comment about complacency. I think that's part of what's causing it is there's a lot of money to be made. And so I would bring it down. I would bring it down from, the regulatory bodies, or state societies or AICPA or any of those and say, what are you doing locally? What are you doing in your firm? And drive change there. Yes, we need to work on, the macro issues and concerns as well. But what we, want to implore current leaders to do is for sure not block change, because we're still seeing that happen, unfortunately. But then secondly, what change could you make in your firm, in your organization, in your accounting department to make accounting appealing, to make it fun, to relieve some of the perceptions of it being, a sweatshop or the hours required or the compression or, those kinds of things that are happening. So at the individual level, both as leaders and then at firms and organizations is where to drive that change.
Jeremy, Rick and Tamara are onto something there. It could be that accounting's great as a brand, but that's not communicated well. Not enough success stories are coming out about how great being an accountant is and how much they make a difference. Where do you sit on this?
Yeah, I would agree with that. So often we don't tell those stories until somebody decides they want to leave. And then it's told through the lens of the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Let's be honest, for some people it is, and that's great for them. And we should wish them well rather than trying to convince them late. If we've got these great stories to tell, which we do as a profession, we should be telling them all the time. We shouldn't wait and do it as a reaction. Your original question, whose responsibility is it? If you identify yourself as a leader in the accounting profession, it is your responsibility. And if you abdicate that responsibility, you're not a leader. And you just need to just accept that, because if you want the profession to be future ready, whether you're a current leader or a next generation leader, or maybe you're even a senior and you're trying to drive change in your firm, it's your responsibility. Yeah. Right. We can only, the profession, and Rick, you alluded to this, the profession itself can't change. Firms themselves can't change, but each individual, they can drive change. They can make change. They can be the change. And if you're waiting for somebody else to do it, you're abdicating your responsibility. It's every individual in the profession that wants it to be future ready. It's their responsibility.
Yeah. The problem with it being everyone's responsibility is everyone thinks everyone else is going to do it.
Exactly right. Yeah. But
they abdicate.
I don't have to worry about it. It's yours.
Yeah, you can do it. I'll leave it up to everyone else. Jean, what do you think about this?
That's exactly my thought, Rob. You stole it right there. When I first read the question, I thought, it's everybody's job, to make sure that this happens. But then if it's everybody's job, nobody's doing it, right? Because you are thinking, somebody else is going to take care of it. So I thought about this at two different levels, like the big picture, the leaders, in these governmental bodies and also the networks and the association leaders. I think firms get a lot of information and inspiration from members of these different organizations. And then when it comes down to it at the firm level, the firm needs the leader or leaders that can see the picture of their firm into the future and combining that with the changes that are happening in the profession. And they're able to lead their team to adjust and succeed in that changing environment. Unfortunately, and Tamera, you probably see this a lot, not every firm has this fantastic leader, who could fill that role. And we all know CPAs who've told us that they've made more money than they ever thought they would being an accountant. And you put those things together. So the ones that, are making things happen and stick out are the ones that we can learn from.
Yeah. That's probably the same in any profession, isn't it? You have the champions and the guardians of the brand that just love what they do and put it out there and are great ambassadors for it. And maybe we need more of those. Let's talk about the accountants themselves. I wonder who they are listening to. Jeremy, in your view, who do accountants pay attention to these days?
Rob, this was arguably, I think, the hardest question of all the ones you planned to talk about. This is the one that I struggled with the most. I'm not exactly sure who they listen to, but the more I've thought about it, they're starting to listen. I'm going to take this a different direction. They're starting to listen to their spouses, their family, their friends, and they're starting to recognize that all of the things that they're told from the office side of things, right? All the money that they're making, Gene, to your point, right? And the hours that have to be worked. Tamera, you mentioned that earlier, that isn't actually what's most important. And this is a change that I believe has really accelerated post-pandemic, is people have come to the realization that it isn't all about the office. It isn't all about work. So they're listening to those people in their lives that matter the most. And the part that I think scares a lot of firms is that isn't the partners. They're starting to listen more to those that are outside the office and figuring out where the priorities are. Now, in the office, they're still looking to the partners. And whether you think they're listening to you or not, they're watching. And that's a really important thing for partners and leaders to understand. But where they're truly listening, I really genuinely believe is moving outside the office and more to the personal side of things.
Jean, who do you feel has the ear of accountants these days?
Jeremy, I loved your answer. I wish I thought of it first. Yeah, because especially since the pandemic, lots of people have been thinking about, how do I want to spend my time? What do I want to be doing with it? Not in a negative way or a sad way, but just I think all of us were given pause to think, hey, it's a bit of a crazy world we live in. Let's be mindful about what we're doing. I came at it, which was brilliant, by the way. I came at it from a more business-like way, and I took a look again at the 100 top influencers in accounting that Accounting Today does, and of course Barry Melanson is at the top, and followed by our buddy Alan Colton, who's merging the entire profession together. So we do have spokespeople like that I believe people listen to, and I would like to think also that on a firm level, and again I'm going to mention the networks and associations, those CEOs and those leaders from the members within those organizations have the ear of their fellow members of those organizations.
Just in the interest of our international show, there are other influencers outside the US, which is good news. There are lots of great global influencers. I know you've got your lists there, but there's a lot of great thinkers. But yeah, there's accountants do definitely listen to their peers and the networks, associations, alliances. There is that curiosity where they want to peer over the garden wall and look at what's going on there, or look into someone else's medicine cabinet and say to their peers, what are you doing with this and how are you dealing with this? Tamera, who do you feel accountants pay attention to?
Well, I'm going to follow that line of thought, and then I want to, share a different perspective. So this idea of peers and associations and listening to each other, I worry about that a little bit because I fear that there becomes some groupthink and we're okay. And instead of how can we drive change, I look for evidence or validation for what I'm doing or not doing is okay. So who I think that they should listen to is our young talent. We should be listening to the next gen about what they see possible in the profession, how they would change the business model, how they would leverage technology, how they would enhance our client service, and productivity. And I think sometimes we minimize that or, say they're, still too green or they don't really understand, the history of why we do things. It's our job to educate them, but we need to listen more to that next gen talent.
Rick, you've got a huge audience, probably one of the biggest in the world that you are giving great content to, and presumably they're watching and listening now. Who do you feel has the ear or the eye of accountants these days?
I think Jeremy, Tamera, Jean all covered the essentials. The one thing that is left to cover is the people they do business with, their clients, their counterparts on the other side of the deal table. Here's an example in terms of the deal table. I think it was about 2 years ago, Grant Thornton offloaded its healthcare division, about 1,000 people, to Veritas Capital, a PE company. Apparently, they learned something about PE with that and decided to sell their whole firm to another PE company. At the same time, there's lots of examples of firms that learn a lot from their clients and their customers. The technology, the workflows, the structures, the culture that small business operates under has been changing rapidly in recent years. And accounting firms are changing just as much, at least to keep up. Some of the more forward-thinking firms are taking leadership positions and showing small business clients how to move forward. But it works in a symbiotic way between client and practitioner. It's actually a pretty wonderful thing to watch when it's working right.
Another stakeholder here is the tech vendors, the software providers. Accountants are listening to them because of the way tech is shaping the way the job is done these days. So we could maybe throw those into the mix. I guess it comes down to the fact that so many people want the ear of accountants. They are the second most sold to profession in the world, behind doctors. So every pharmaceutical company wants a conversation with a doctor, and we know why that is. But as the guardians of business, pretty much everyone wants a conversation with an accountant to either get to them or their clients to sell them all kinds of things. So they're very much in demand and probably overloaded with offers and propositions and sales pitches. So, but yeah, that certainly gives us a flavor of what they're contending with. Let's bust some myths. Tamera, I'll start with you on this one. Any faulty thinking, any fake news, any long-standing myths you feel might be holding the profession back that you can talk about today and put right?
I am sad that there is still a myth that remote doesn't work. And we have proved it works on a dime. Across the globe, we changed and shifted to remote work with the pandemic. And anybody that knows convergence coaching knows we've been Pied Pipers of remote work. For our 24 years of business, we've been a remote and hybrid team, in the cloud before it was called the cloud, and, teaching leaders, how to serve clients, how to develop people, how to, collaborate together. And it can happen. And I worry about the myth that we have to bring people back to the office, or that you cannot have people, trained properly or progress properly, or even progress at all if they're remote. And I think that is going to hurt our profession. I think that's one of the places we need to listen to next gen talent, figure out what the right balance is. but I'm very, very worried about that fake news.
Let's just camp on that for a moment. You bring up an excellent point. I will ask you all what your views are on busting some myths, but on the return to work and the contracts, the psychological contracts that are being put into that. And if you don't come back to work, you will not be considered for promotion. You won't be considered as wholly bought into the firm. Any views from you other three about that?
I agree with Tamera, and you guys have been doing that survey for many, many years. And of course, it took the pandemic to everybody to say, hey, pack up your computer and go home. And, the work still got done, some people really felt the need to get back to an office. Others were very comfortable at home and thinking, man, I never want to go to an office again. I think the firms that are not adapting in some way to flexible work are missing a big opportunity with talent. It's not, it's not your dad's accounting profession anymore. You don't need to see the butts in the seats, to be confident that they're doing their work. And there have been studies out there too that people are even more productive when they're working from home as opposed to them working in the office. So if firms are not offering any sort of opportunity for flex work, it's a big mistake in my opinion.
I wonder if it's a trust thing, if it's a control thing, or whether they hide behind, we need everyone in to drive culture, because it's hard to drive culture remotely. Tamera?
No, Jeremy, I think you were going to comment on that.
Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah, I am 100% on board with Gene and Tamera in this. And here's the thing, even before the pandemic, if you did auditing at a client's office, you proved that remote work could work. You just didn't call it that. But auditors have been remote since they were lugging stacks of paper everywhere. It's just that you couldn't be remote in your own hometown where the office was. And that's just been a flawed way of thinking for a long time. Now, I'm not going to say that for every firm, hybrid or remote is right. There are some firms where they're going to be an in-the-office firm, and there are going to be certain people attracted to a firm like that, and that's great, right? Not every firm has to be the same. And I think, Rob, you and I have talked about this previously. I think there's going to be a bell curve. You're going to have a few firms that are all remote. You're going to have a few firms that are all in person, but the vast majority are the middle of that bell curve, and they're going to be some variation of hybrid. It works. It's always worked. Tamera, to your point, this isn't new. It just took a pandemic to prove to people that it could work. And now we've got to figure out, okay, how do we embrace it? Let's stop arguing about it and fighting it and just get to work.
Yeah. Rick, what about you? Any myths that need busting in your view? Any fake news, any faulty thinking that perhaps might be holding accounting back?
Well, first of all, let me say that Jeremy, Tamera, and Gene covered the idea of remote work very well. It's here to stay. And there was remote work before we called it remote work, as Jeremy pointed out. The myths that accountants believe that are holding them back are about partnership and pricing. And that is holding back their development of a new business model. In terms of partnership, they have to do the painful thing of figuring out how to break up a partnership or create a firm that isn't all about partners. Owners, yes. Shareholders, for sure. Partners, and the way we think about partners now as privileged people, not so much. When it comes to pricing, accountants have to understand that their clients are willing to pay for more services. Clients want more from their accountants. Accountants have more that they can deliver in terms of judgment, analysis, counsel, just being there. And once we can reform pricing in a firm, everything can change. Suddenly there's extra money for everything. There's extra money for people, there's extra money for owners, there's extra money for development going forward, and the whole culture can change. But it won't change until pricing changes. And pricing can't change until some of the compliance services are abandoned by firms, because those compliance services are highly competitive. The 1040 work is going away. You don't want to build a 1040 practice anymore.
Yeah.
You want to build something bigger and better.
Well, I'm going to give you all a couple of wishes in a moment that give you the power to change something overnight. So keep your powder dry on that one. Jean, any wrongs that you want to put right today?
Sure. And I'm going to tag on to Rick's comments because mine was the myth that the billable hour is the best way to price accounting services. A client doesn't care how long it takes an accountant to get the job done. They want to know that it was done correctly and the result that they came up with is going to help the client solve a problem or achieve a goal or, something positive in their business. So the price needs to be what the client thinks the accountant services are worth to them and not how long it took them to do it.
Amen to that. That might be one of your wishes as we come to the next round, Jean. Let's hear what Jeremy has to say in terms of what's holding us back in our thinking. Jeremy.
Yeah, it's this idea that the next generation doesn't want to work as hard as we did just because they want to work differently. That is, look, every generation has heard it, so let's just stop perpetuating the myth. Yes, they want to work differently, but you know who they learned how to work differently from? All of us that are complaining about the fact that they want to work differently. So they're using what we've said over the years and they're now putting it into practice. And what I love about it is I love when I hear people talk about the next generation that have kids because it's the next generation excluding their kids. Like their kids are doing what they taught them, everybody else, right? It's this whole, well, no, that's different. Look, they want to work different. And as soon as we can accept the fact that they can be really effective working differently if we will give them the freedom to do so, we are going to move forward so much faster because at least what I see is there are a lot of firms right now that are holding back on giving the next generation of leaders and professionals ownership over projects and the freedom to be successful because they're wanting to do it differently. And it goes back to that idea of control. They don't want to do it my way. They don't want to work 80-hour weeks. It can't be successful. So we've got to turn them into order takers. And it's just flawed. And it's also not helping us recruit people, by the way. Nobody wants to go to 5 years of school, take the CPA exam, and then become somebody's order taker. They want to be an expert. So we need to abandon the idea that working differently is, not working as hard and embrace this next generation talent and really get the most, give them the potential, give them the opportunity to be successful because they want to be.
So where do we get to now? We know we've got a profession that is revered. It's in fairly good shape. There are a few things we would change, a little bit of faulty thinking. I'm going to give you all two wishes and a magic wand. And Jean, I'll start with you on this one. We are in this game because we want the whole to be better. We serve accountants because we want to help them do a better job. And by and large, they are coachable and teachable and willing to learn. Goodness knows they pass very difficult exams. However, through maybe some things down to their own fault or external forces at play, there are things that we can change and that need to change. So with a couple of wishes, Jean, what are you holding out for that would go with a click of a finger?
Right. Okay. So I would like to wave my magic wand and create a widespread understanding of the value that marketing and business development brings to public accounting. So we've come a long way over these, 40 plus years. Firms have hired marketing professionals. They've outsourced their marketing. We've had internal marketers achieve principal, partner, even CEO status. So we've made progress, but we also still have many, many firms who could care less about marketing and business development. They just see business coming to them. What is it? Why do I need to do that? I don't want to do that. I didn't go to school to do that. We've all heard it. And yet without marketing and business development and promotion and pricing and all those other elements of marketing and business development, firms are not going to grow, or they're not growing in a smart, strategic way. They're accepting clients just because they've come along and they're breathing. So that's my soapbox about marketing and business development. It's really not hard, to understand if some folks would just kind of open their minds and realize the impact that the marketing and business development discipline serves. And then secondly, I would like to change the firm structure. We've already mentioned this a little bit, from partnerships to corporations or other entity types, but have leadership that demands accountability. that the partners aren't all going off in their separate ways and they're doing it this way and Joe's doing it that way, that there is the strong leadership and that they are all accountable to each other. And then imagine what they can get done.
Fair point. I chaired a conference last year in London for the International Accounting Forum and the IAB. This is the International Accounting Bulletin. And they generally serve the associations and the networks. They have an awards ceremony there. Mark Koziel from Millennial stood up on stage. I introduced him and he talked about how the partnership model was dead. And he said the managing partner role is dead because how can anybody manage partners? They're just unmanageable. They all want different things. They've all got different agendas. And it really cut to the quick with the room and resonated with them that we've been going like this for many years and it has worked and it does bring in money. However, change might well be necessary. Jeremy, what about you? A couple of wishes. The genie is out of the bottle. What have you got?
Yeah. So I'm going to build on what Gene said with my first, and that the first wish is that leaders would stop running firms like a collection of sole proprietors and start running it like a business. And to do that, so let me tie a touch of action to it real quick, since I don't have a magic wand. The core there, and everybody has kind of alluded to this, is leaders have to figure out how to separate governance from operations. Your title of partner is great for governance. It doesn't do anything in an operational structure of the business. It helps you do business development and marketing better, Gene, right? You have partner behind your name. It's going to carry more weight. Shows where you're at in the hierarchy. You don't get a partner card you get to play. That's a governance thing, not an operations thing. Rick, you alluded to this. So wish number one, we stop running it like a collection of sole proprietors. We start running it like a business, which means we got to separate governance from operations. And we have to understand and embrace that. The second thing that I would change, given the choice, is that leaders would start to lead with compassion rather than for compliance. And I think that if we can get leaders to lead with compassion, they will develop people better. They will understand why their people are behaving in certain ways. They will take the time to get connected to their people, to their clients. And so often when leaders are leading for compliance, they have this veneer of perfection. And I think, Tamera, you've mentioned a couple times the hours thing and the sweatshop mentality. So often I'll hear when we're talking about balancing life and work is, oh, well, I never missed a kid's ball game. And I tell my people that all the time. That's not compassion, that's compliance. And what they hear is, great, 60-year-old partner, you were a partner, of course you didn't miss anything. That doesn't help a senior or a supervisor. Let's have some compassion. Hey, you know what? I remember when I was 25 trying to figure that out as a senior, and I did miss the occasional game, but I made most of them, because that's actually the reality. And the reality leads to more compassion rather than just trying to get people to come in, work the hours, check the box, and turn it into a manufacturing plant of 1040s. Rick, I'm with you. Nobody wants to do that. So let's lead with compassion rather than for compliance.
Rick, Telberg, what have you got with your two wishes?
It's one big wish. And the wish is that the world knew and the profession was better talking about every accountant is an entrepreneur. Every owner of a CPA firm has built a book of business. They know how to sell their services. They know how to make a living. They know how to build a business. And becoming an accountant and working in an accounting firm is really one of the best ways to become an entrepreneur. What we have to recognize, what I wish the world would recognize, what I wish the profession would recognize a little bit more, is that they're all entrepreneurs at heart.
If only that world existed, it might definitely change things. Tamera, what about you? You've been holding back on your two wishes. What have you got for us?
I would start with one of my wishes is that we would stop complaining and tell a better story about accounting. Yeah. And there is so much greatness and so much opportunity that we've been all discussing today. And it starts at the kitchen table, at dinner time. It starts at, the family reunions. It starts, during busy season, which in the United States we're in the midst of right now. Not telling war stories about this is the worst, busy season, in 34 years and we'll get through it. And then we wonder why seniors are wondering if they should be in public accounting or, even new partners. And so there's such a great story to tell. And we can improve the brand and perception of all those opportunities, one conversation at a time. So that's my first wish. The second wish is building better metrics, and that ties into moving away from time-based metrics. So we can do that in parallel. I'll take, Jeremy's, playbook and say, all right, where do we start, right? I'm not saying get rid of the entire timesheet, although we could have a whole conversation about that. What I'm saying is time alone limits us. It limits us in the pricing discussion we were having. It limits us in our rewards. It limits us in, how we're managing and that compassion, Jeremy. And so we need to focus on results-based metrics. And, what are the deliverables? What is the output? What is the client satisfaction? What are the quality standards? And let's measure and reward based on those, develop new KPIs and metrics that go beyond time.
Amen to all of those. Thank you for your wishes. Let's talk about tech. And I want to put this subject on the table because we're not tech vendors here. I have run plenty of these panels where we've got software providers and heads of tech firms in here, but we talk to accountants all the time. We get a sense of how overloaded they are, or how overwhelmed, or how well or how badly they buy tech strategically, and how they use it and how they integrate it. We know that accountants these days need to be techie. They need to know more than how to turn a computer on and off. Not the need to write code and be geeks like that, but the tech is inseparable from the function of an accountant. So, Rick, I'm going to start with this one with you, if we can. What role do tech providers, software vendors have in the accounting profession, and anything they could do better in your eyes?
Technology is the underpinnings of the profession. The technology is the underpinnings of any business. Sometimes it's digital technology, sometimes it's iron and bronze. The question about tech vendors, though, tech vendors do a really good job at talking about their features and benefits. Tech vendors could do a better job about talking about fit. How does their product fit with the accountant's workflow? How does their product help the workflow? Where does it accelerate change? Where does it accelerate processes? The tech vendors could do a better job of understanding where the choke points, not just the pain points, which is what they sell on, but the choke points where things don't get done or get done badly or need to be redone. They could do a better job of addressing those particular issues when they're trying to make a sale and when they're trying to do support.
That sounds fair. They're actually very good at selling. They're very good marketers. They're very good at pitching because they're all about the numbers. But some of them do genuinely care about the client and the fit and other things. Tamera, where do you sit on this and the role of the vendors? What could they do better?
Yeah, and I'll just, tag right off, Rick, what you said. And I think, being enablers for accountants and, tied to that, it's not just the features and functionalities or even the pain or the choke points, but, how do we improve processes? How do we improve, how do we tie technology to that? It's not separate. When I implement a new technology solution, we're in the middle of, implementing a new learning management system, and it's our processes, it's our procedures, and the technology is an enabler. And so how is my technology going to enable you for those processes and hopefully become more efficient, eliminate some redundancies, increase productivity, improve decision-making with easy access to information, all of those things, but it's got to come down to, process, procedures, how we get the work done, whatever that role is, with technology, and have it be an enabler.
Jeremy, it's tough without the tech. We can't live without them. Necessary evil or a strategic partner for accountants?
Yeah, probably.
How could they serve accountants better?
Yeah, it really is, and it's building on what both Rick and Tamera have said. It's got to help accountants do what they do better. And it seems like one of the big areas is really let's not hide where they stop. All right. What are the shortcomings? What can't it do? We know what it can do, the features, the pain points, all the things, right? That's what they use in their selling. But what accountants probably need beyond that is, okay, what is it not going to do for me? And where's the gap going to exist after I get it implemented? Because so often we'll get excited, right? We'll have the new tech, we'll get it we're going to buy it, we're going to get it implemented, everything's going to be better. And what's lost is the fact that no, everything up to here is going to be better, but then there's still this gap. And we don't think about, okay, how do we fix or finish that process out? And is that the software vendor's responsibility? I don't know that it necessarily is, because they're in for business as well. I wish that they would be more open and transparent about what it won't do, so that accounting firms can figure out, okay, well, what else do I need to get the full process where I want it, rather than just piecemeal it, a little at a time.
Yes, and I've heard an example of that recently and on our podcast. The AI revolution is such now that pretty much all of the tech vendors, providers will say AI driven or AI integrated, and it's really not. It might have a little bit of chat GPT or anything else in there, but it's not truly AI driven, but they badge it as such. And accountants, bless them, naive, hopeful, whatever it is, they just latch onto that as being the new shiny thing, and boom, you've got another piece of technology that may or may not integrate with everything else that you've got, that may or may not serve your clients, that may or may not talk to everything else. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox. It's Jean's turn. Jean, what's your view on the whole tech space?
Okay, so I'm going to come at this from a bit of a different perspective,
Sure.
related to technology that helps with marketing and business development and prospecting and managing data and dashboards and all of that. I think there are vendors out there who do say that it does act like a CRM or has other capabilities. Jeremy, I'm kind of doubling up on what you were saying, when it really doesn't. And I believe those vendors know in their hearts that, their product is not Salesforce, or HubSpot or whatever it is, but they want to make that sale, and they make it, and then the firms, determine, well, it really doesn't operate like that. Then on the other hand, firms implementing programs like that, we all know that if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. So I think practitioners get really excited at the beginning because they could see what kind of data they're going to be able to collect. They're going to have this, client feedback. It's going to make their business development, maybe not easier, but more informed. But then we get back to the partnership structure and everybody wanting to do it the way they want. And then in only a matter of time, you have this, shiny, expensive CRM program that's really not doing what it's supposed to do. So I'm trying to voice the challenges from both sides when it comes to tech. We need tech. It can be very challenging.
Yeah. Rick, you look thoughtful. Did you want to add anything there?
I thought that all the points are really good. The idea of somewhere in the sale and support process, there has to be a place where accountants get to find out, have the opportunity to find out where it doesn't work, what it doesn't do, what they have to work around, or like Tamera was saying, what processes they have to change because of it. In general, the tech vendors are going to sell tech. What we need and what the best CPA firms do and what the best businesses do is they find the people who know how businesses work, how their business works, how the software works, where it doesn't work. And so that intermediary, that independent third party is very, very important, absolutely essential. I don't think enough accounting firms take the time, effort, or want to spend the money on that independent third party, that consultant or that reseller that could really help install, maintain, and grow with the business.
Thank you. Well, let's bring this to land. It's been a wonderful conversation. We've righted some wrongs. We've made some wishes. We've changed some things overnight. We've rebranded the profession. We've sorted tech out. We've sorted talent out. We've sorted culture out. We've dealt with remote working. We've sorted firm structures out. We've hit pricing. We've done everything today. Just ask you for your closing remarks. Jeremy, I'll start with you. As a message of hope to our audience, why is this a great time to be in accounting?
Because of the transformation, the change, as Rick mentioned earlier, some people want to view it as threats and challenges. It's tons of opportunity that's out there. And it's the fact that it's no longer just tax returns and audit reports. And that's not a knock on tax returns and audit reports. That was never my thing necessarily. I was on the consulting side, but the profession is transforming. It is changing. It is becoming more advisory in nature. It is becoming more consultative in nature. And the way that I view it, that means that everyone that's getting into the profession, they're getting to become the expert that they wanted to become when they entered the profession to start with. And they're going to get to collaborate with non-accountants as well within the profession, because more and more firms are recognizing it doesn't take just accountants. It takes experts of all types. And that level of collaboration, professional development, professionalism, and everything that comes with that makes it an outstanding profession to be a part of.
Good. Jean, good time to be in this game?
Of course it is. Many accountants became accountants and CPAs because they want to help people. And accountants are terrific about helping business owners solve their problems. The accounting profession it's not going away, and they could really make a difference for both individuals and businesses and helping their clients attain their goals. They could work in any industry that they want, right? And it's not just public accounting, I'm talking about here. It's just, the whole profession, as a whole. Accountants are always going to be in demand, and you can spend all of your time, helping people and making an impact for them and their livelihoods.
Tamera, what about you? Exciting time to be in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it could be more exciting. And, I'm going to launch off, Jean, your comment, because I think the possibilities in accounting that we've all been talking about are incredible, which means you get to chart your own course. You get to define what your career looks like, and you get to define the kind of difference that you want to make, the contributions you want to make for clients, for your business or organization, even in your community, for your team. And so, really the sky's the limit, and you can chart your own course, which is amazing.
Rick Telberg, you've been a servant of this loyal profession for many, many years. It's apt that we give you the last word here. What message of hope and excitement would you give to our audience today?
It's a terrific profession. The future for accountants is wonderful. It's limitless. The future for firms, as we know it, not so much. Think of it this way. I'm reminded of a quote from Bill Gates, something to the effect of banking is necessary. Banks, not. Same with accounting firms. Accounting is necessary. Business advisory is necessary. Accounting firms, not so much. So it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful world for accountants who want to make a living working with individuals and businesses and advancing their lives. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful world for the accountants who want to build a new kind of accounting business. And maybe we don't call it accounting.
What a provocative, great place to finish. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been a wonderful discussion today. We really appreciate your insights, your passion, and all of the things you've shared. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. It was wonderful.